Good evening, everyone. Sorry about that. We're right on time at 6 o'clock, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the Tuesday, November 16th, 2021 Delray Oaks City Council meeting. Karen, could you please do a roll call?
Councilmember Gagliotti.
Here.
Councilmember Donaldson.
Here.
Councilmember Shirley.
Here.
Vice Mayor Lintel.
Here.
Mayor Kerr.
Here. All right, so we're all in attendance. The Pledge of Allegiance. I'm looking around. Jeff Hoyne, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
Absolutely, Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're on mute, Mayor.
You didn't hear all my charming conversation. I was saying we have Reverend Hallam with us this evening, so welcome, and I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Shall we pray? Almighty God, thank you so much for the city of Delray Oaks. Thank you for these faithful public servants and the public who are attending the meeting. And we pray that you'll bless everyone here with your grace, your wisdom, and with common sense. Heal anybody who's been sick, and heal our whole country from this plague of the COVID-19 virus. And thank you for your presence with us. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Nice to see you.
See you too.
It's time for public comments. This is general public comments must deal with matters subject to the jurisdiction of the city and the council that are not on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the city council on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now. The public may comment on any other matter listed on the agenda at the time the matter is being considered. There will be a time limit of no more than 3 minutes for each speaker. No action will be taken on matters brought up under this item, and all comments will be referred to staff. Please raise your hand and we will call on you for public comment. Any public comment?
I don't have the hand raising option, but I'd like to speak, Mayor.
Okay, please do.
My name is Ray Reyes, 24 Saucedo. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to address the rampant speeding and disregard for traffic laws in Delray Oaks and to request more police presence to make our streets safer for pedestrians, cyclists, and our pets. As a 24-year resident, I've noticed over time that some drivers have become more distracted and aggressive, and they also speed more and stop at stop signs less. This is a disaster for the quiet streets of our neighborhood. Most of the time, our wide, straight streets are empty and quiet, and our citizens and pets stroll the streets carefree. But during certain times of the day, our roads turn into ferocious, loud, unsafe expressways, and drivers focus on getting to work on time, their phones, a meal, and it's pedestrians beware. Nothing slows these drivers down. Our neighbors walking their dogs have been addressed with profane gestures when they motion for these drivers to slow down. And some drivers even speed up and laugh as they blast away to wherever they're going. This feeling of impunity has come about because these drivers are emboldened. There are no consequences. There are no police patrols to show a law enforcement presence on our streets during these times of the day. There are no physical speed barriers like speed bumps, humps, or other traffic calming mechanisms. So speeders rule the day during rush hour times, and they know it. Us pedestrians know this and move close to the sides of the streets as the speeders leave us in their dust, but our pets aren't aware of rush hour and enter the streets whenever they want. The distracted speeders are responsible for the deaths of at least 2 cats that I know of in the past couple of months. One on Carlton just this past Sunday, and the other, a purebred Bengal cat on Quindale. The Bengal was run over right in front of her owner's eyes as she waited in the street to go for their morning walk. Now my neighbor is fed up with the speeders and no city government response and wants to move. I understand many people believe that these horrific deaths are not the fault of the drivers, But I would say that speeding, distracted driving, a disregard for speed limits and traffic laws, and a lack of police presence and consequences for the speeders have created the unsafe streets we live on here on the seaside side of the canyon, specifically on Carlton, Quindale, and Portola. We all pay a premium to live in this beautiful place, and we deserve better. I would like our city government and police force to make slowing the cars down in our neighborhood a priority, a front burner topic to make our streets safer for our pedestrian population, for our pets. Actions in the past have proved effective, in my opinion. When there is a ghost police car parked across 218 from the Frog Pond, cars obediently line up behind me as I turn left onto Carlton. When the car is not there, I can feel my car move from the air draft of the cars as they speed into the bike lane to pass me on the right. Similarly, when the white truck with the trailer holding the lighted sign telling drivers to stay out of the bike lane is parked in front of City Hall, drivers obey the traffic laws. These are low-cost deterrents that have proven effective, but when they're gone, the lead foots return, and following traffic laws designed for safety go out the window. I don't understand why our city government does not choose to make the safety of our citizens a priority and implement initiatives that are low cost that will protect us, our families, and our pets. I wish they would.
Mr. Reyes, we need to move on.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see Patrice Vecchione.
Good evening. My name is Patrice Vecchione. I live on Saucedo Avenue, and I have two comments to make this evening. The first, following on the heels of my next door neighbor, Ray. Another beloved cat, Finn, was killed on Carlton last weekend by a speeding car. I too lost a cat to a car speeding on Carlton and was devastated for years. It's losing a friend. That's really an important consideration. I ask that the city respect its residents and our pets. We need speed humps on Carlton. My second comment is a procedural one relating to last month's meeting. Despite, according to 3 maps, including the current map on the TAMC website, that make it evident that Councilmember Donaldson's home is within 500 feet of the proposed 4-tag trail, he refused to recuse himself from voting on the issue. Unlike the other 2 council members who own their own homes and also live within 500 feet. Because of his refusal to act in an honorable and appropriate manner, I have filed a sworn complaint against Mr. Donaldson with the Fair Political Practices Commission. Mr. Donaldson, I encourage you to be an upstanding, appropriate council member and recuse yourself from all voting on this issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrice. Any other public comments of items not on the agenda? Mr. Donaldson?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and good evening to everyone. I'm speaking as Scott Donaldson, a resident of Portola, and we too have had our speeding issues on our street. And one of the things that we had installed a while back were the flashing speeding signs. And I believe they are able to record the frequency of the number of cars and also their speed. And, you know, if we can do that to create kind of a database where we can identify what the peak times are where speeders are on those streets, maybe we can increase the police presence during those times and on those streets. So it's something I would throw out to staff to see if we could once again get that data from those flashing speed signs and utilize that for potential police presence on those streets. Thank you.
I'm clicking. What else?
Tammy, did you
Hello.
have something to say?
Yes, there's a technology god and she doesn't like me.
That's
Thank
okay.
you and
Please
good
introduce
evening.
yourself.
Hi, I'm Tammy. I live at 24 Saucedo. With all due respect, I'm tired of the speeding cars on Carlton Drive that kill our cats and wildlife. The problem is not new. Over the last 20 24 years, I've personally talked to mayors and city council folks and police, and it's to no avail. When I saw that dead kitty behind my house on Sunday, my heart just sank again. I found a box and a towel, and I wrapped the putty kitty up gently inside the towel in the box again. I said a little prayer again. I apologized again, because every creature deserves better, especially when it's preventable a lot of the time. I wonder what our city government will do. So with great respect, slow down the traffic on Carlton. It's the right thing to do. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Tammy. Any other public comments this evening? Karen, do you see any
I don't.
hands?
I am not seeing.
No,
any
no
hands.
virtual hands.
Nope.
All right.
No.
So I'm going to bring it back to the council. Thank you for your comments, and I'm so sorry for the loss of the cat. I am a pet owner, and I understand the sadness involved in losing somebody so unnecessarily. So what I'd like to do is turn this over to, is Jason Cameron here with us this evening?
I sure am.
Wonderful. So I ran into Jason at Veterans Day commemoration, and I invited him to come and share a little bit about what the Military and Veterans Affairs Office is doing. And I thought it was appropriate in the month of November. So I'd like to turn it over to Jason. Thank you for being with us.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mayor. So again, my name is Jason Cameron. I am the Director of Military and Veterans Affairs for the County of Monterey. Also, San Benito County, they contract to us, so I provide services there as well. I am also a United States Marine Corps veteran. I also served in the Army National Guard. I'm also a commissioner on the Commission for Disabilities within the county, and I'm also a committee member for the Monuments and Memorials Committee with the state of California. So in the Monterey County, we have almost 21,000 veterans, and primarily what we do is provide support and advocacy for our transitioning military members, reservists, veterans, National Guard members, and all of their family members, so spouses and dependents. So a lot of times that kind of gets lost in the translation. We just assume that all we do is work with veterans, but it's much more than that. So some of the things that we provide is disability compensation, services with regard to that, from both, also benefits from both the state of California and the federal government. So the federal government provides disability compensation through the VA. We also provide support to obtain low or no income pensions through the VA. So it's a safety net program through the Veterans Affairs Office, which a lot of people don't know about. So for veterans that are low or no income, there are these pensions that are available. We also provide the same type of pension for surviving spouses, as well as dependent indemnity compensation for surviving spouses. And surviving spouses doesn't necessarily mean that the loved one died during military action. Could have been that they were a veteran and then passed away. So when in doubt, send people to us, because there might be something there that we can help with. Educational benefits for the service members, the spouses, the veterans, the dependents. One of the big things, it's unfortunately, it's kind of a secret out there, people just don't know, is a service-connected veteran at any percentage. So I have a bad knee, maybe I have a rating with the VA that equates to 10%, and I get a little monetary benefit and I can go to the VA hospital. Because of that, the state of California says, guess what, service member? All of your children can go to any state school tuition free. So that's your community colleges, your UCs, your CSUs, all tuition free, all the way through to a doctorate if they continue to meet the criteria through the process. So it's a phenomenal program. Our office waived approximately $1.5 million in tuition fees last year alone. So it's a great program out there for folks. In addition, I work obviously very closely with our County Board of Supervisors on legislative priorities with regard to the veteran community. Also work with all of our legislators from congressional to the state Senate to the state assembly folks. A couple of the big things we're currently working on the state side is we're trying to champion getting a veteran home. The California Department of Veterans Affairs operates veteran homes throughout the state of California. There's currently 8. We're looking to provide land and get the California Department of Veterans Affairs to agree to operate one here in Monterey County. So we're looking to get that hopefully up and running. We've had many meetings regarding this so far and going to continue. And then on the federal side, we're working to get the pharmacy added into the VA clinic. The old VA clinic had a pharmacy. The new VA clinic has a pharmacy, but it is not staffed. It's not filled. It doesn't have any prescription drugs in there. I mean, very few, and it's a very different type of a situation. It's not really a fully functioning pharmacy. So we're looking to do that. We're working very heavily with the Congressman's office and his team over in DC. And so with that, I'll give just a couple quick numbers and then I'll wrap it up. So in the state of California, we have about 1.7 million veterans. In the state or in the county of Monterey, we have again about 21,000. Remember that 21,000 really is closer to 50,000 people because we had spouses and dependents that we serve in our office. So it's really closer to a 50,000 number that we can serve potentially. And our compensation and pension, which are our 2 biggest monetary awards that get awarded to the veteran or the surviving spouse or the next of kin. Last year alone, we brought in $110 million into the pockets of the recipients into the county. So this is our county alone. The state veteran population, including the spouses, surviving spouses, and potentially next of kin dependents who are receiving any sort of carry-on benefits, brought in over nearly 8.5 billion. So it's huge numbers that we're bringing in from the federal government into our state in regard to benefits for these veterans. So with that, I could be here all day talking. So I'll go ahead and wrap it up. Our website is mvao.org. So Military Veterans Affairs Office, mvao.org. And all of our information's on there. And I welcome any future conversations or questions or concerns. Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for your presentation, but also thank you for your service and your hard work. I'd like to turn it over to the council. Any questions, comments? Let's start with Vice Mayor Lintel.
Yes, thank you, Jason, for an excellent presentation and for being with us this evening. It was very informative. There were different things that I was not aware of, not being of a military family. But I was happy to hear that dependents have so many benefits, which you explained quite well. And so I'm happy about that. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Mr. Gagliotti.
Jason, thank you so much. I'm actually going to be contacting you. I had no idea some of the benefits that are there. I'm actually a disabled vet, so So thank you very much. Very informative.
Absolutely. Look forward to hearing from you.
Mr. Donaldson.
I don't have any questions. Jason, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for your service and everything that you do for the veterans here on the Monterey Peninsula. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And happy to help. Thank you for having me.
And Ms. Shirley.
Yes, thank you, Jason, for coming to give us this information. It's good to hear. Again, kind of like Pat, I don't have a military background, so it's nice to know all of the benefits that you provide and all the work you've done. And again, thank you for your service. And thank you for making Monterey County a better place for our veterans. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. My pleasure.
So Jason, if you have a few minutes, what I'd like to do is go out to the public and see if there are any questions or comments. Raise your hand if you'd like to say anything or ask Jason any questions. Gary Krieger.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I sit on the Monterey County Military Affairs and Advisory Committee, and Jason's always there to help run that. And so I get a really good inside view of this, and I just want to just tell you, he's being modest. He runs a great program. It's the first time I sit on the board, my first meeting. Yeah, he does a great job. My kids both got free tuition to the program. It's a great program. Their office is awesome, and would strongly recommend anyone go in and talk to them. They're about, and Jason, we're about to get the great new facility. It's going to be even easier to get to them. No more, don't take off your belt to go through the metal detector anymore. So I'm looking forward to that. So thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Gary.
Mayor, if I could, Jason, would you mind sending us your website, and we'd be glad to share it on our city website?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That'd be great. Any other public comments? Karen, do you see any?
I do not. No.
Okay, I'll bring it back. I do just want to let those of us that are with us this evening know that usually in the agenda packet, we will have under reports a report from, we have a representative that works with Jason. His name is Rick Johnson. And so generally, I noticed this month he didn't do a report, but generally we do have a listing of activities and things that Mr. Johnson provides to us. So on that, Jason, thank you very much, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you again, Mayor.
All right, take good care. So we will move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone on the council want to pull any item? Seeing no one, I'd like to go out to the community. Does anyone have an item on the consent agenda that they would like to pull and question or discuss? Karen, any?
I don't see any.
Okay, so I'm going to pull it back. I just have one comment and one small question, actually, for Mr. Girton. Will we be moving the Planning Commission minutes to action minutes similarly to what the council minutes are?
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay, do we know when?
Karen?
We started it after they approved the ones that are in this packet. So yes, as of last week, when we had the meeting, they're going to be action minutes.
Great. Okay, thank you. So coming back to the council, I am happy to entertain a motion, or if anybody has a last minute question.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
I'll
I'll second.
Karen, did you get that?
I did.
Okay. And can you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Councilmember Gagliotti,
Aye.
Councilmember Donaldson,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lintel,
Aye.
Mayor Kerr.
Aye. So the consent agenda passes unanimously. We have no old business this evening. And the first item of new business is to consider staff report to analyze the four-tag ballot initiative. So on that, we need to ask those that will recuse from this conversation and potential vote now.
If I could, Mayor, through the mayor.
Yeah.
Given that this is an initiative that affects all of our residents, I wanted to ask either the city manager or Alec, what is the necessity of any of the council having to recuse themselves? Because it seems to be it's being used as a political tool right now. And I frankly, I think it's being used as a political tool to suppress some of the vote. I mean, the council should vote on this. It's people want to hear. They want to vote on this, so why not us as a council vote to send this initiative to them unanimously? It affects everyone. So Alec, if you wanted to.
Sure.
The FPPC letter says that yourself has a conflict of interest in, voting on anything to do with that is prohibited under that opinion. So while the electorate will vote on the initiative, the decision regarding whether or not just to adopt it immediately now or send it to the vote would be participating in a decision that's related to the issue that there's a conflict for.
Yeah, I mean, on that one, half of that's true, right? I mean, I suppose if the council chose to vote on adopting a resolution or be working out some of the terms for a future ordinance, then I would see the conflict. But if the council chooses to vote to just send the initiative to the people to vote on, then that's a decision that affects all the residents.
It would affect all the residents, but the issue is the decision before the council members, and whether or not council determines that they want to either adopt the initiative unchanged or send it to the voter is something that we don't know yet. We don't know how that's going to go. So whether or not it is or isn't going to go to the voters, we don't know. But in any case, it would be participating in a decision for which we know there's a conflict of interest.
So my understanding, John, is that because the word "FORTAG" is in the initiative, that kind of triggers the 500 feet from the current proposed path. If it didn't include FORTAG, then it would simply be about whether or not we would allow paths within the city. So Alex, if I got that wrong, please correct. But I think that one word and ties us into all kinds of knots on this.
The initiative proponents have made clear that the primary objective of the initiative is the FORTAG trail. However, they have drafted it such that it was sort of a bootstrapping to any sort of future formal trail in the future.
So that said, Alex, it is up to, this is this weird kind of ruling where we as individual officials, not as part of the city, can make our own decision on that. The 500-foot rule is pretty clear. And so, everyone can make their own decision.
Yeah,
And
no, I understand. I just think that as a council, I think that we should, as an entire body, send a message on whether or not we're going to send an initiative to the people. I mean, I think that should be a vote, because it's every resident is affected, or not affected, or impacted, or wants this equally, so I mean, I'm just kind of struggling with that. To me, it's a gray area, and frankly, I think that the Brown Act has a hard time with the city of Delray Oaks anyway, because 500 foot can encapsulate a third of our population, or a 500-foot radius on anything. So, I mean, because I would like to, I want to go on record as a seated elected official in this community that the voters, or the people have spoken that they want to send this to a vote, pro and con for FORTAG. And I would like to be, I'd like to honor that as an elected official.
So technically it is your decision, Councilmember Gagliotti. You have the letter from the FPPC stating what it states. This is a decision with respect to the FORTAG project. So that's the advice that I could offer you with respect to the question.
Okay. Well, then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do it. I want to participate in the vote. I will not participate in any drafting of any ordinances. I will not participate in any, and in fact, I'll even, if the discussion on this council goes to, they're going to adopt the resolution, that I will not vote. But if the council chooses that they want to make, if the motion is to send this initiative to the people, then I want to vote on that.
so be it.
Okay.
And before we start, I have looked at a lot of maps, And I am aware of the FPPC complaint, and I've had several residents express their concern and confusion about recusals in this matter. The maps I have seen, one of which was created by our planning contract planner, Denise Duffy and Associates, shows Mr. Donaldson's house within the 500 feet. And so I'd like to ask Scott if you could address, last meeting you indicated that you had done your due diligence. And I'm wondering if A, you would be willing to share that to help alleviate concern and confusion, and your decision this evening, whether you're going to recuse yourself or not.
Yeah, sure. I would just say that there's been no change to my situation. The things that I said last meeting still apply, and the interpretation from the FPPC is still valid regarding my participation, and I intend to participate. But if that changes, like I said, I'll respond accordingly.
So you're stating that your house is not within 500 feet?
No, like I stated last meeting, my house falls within the 500 to 1,000 foot range as it's stated within the FPPC ruling.
And you have a map that shows that?
I have done my due diligence, and I know that's where I am, between 500 and 1,000 feet, just as it explains in the FPPC statement.
Okay, so the Denise Duffy and Associates map is incorrect.
No, that was also taken into consideration.
Okay, so be it. Everyone is making their decision this evening. So on that note, let's turn it over for discussion. Let's start with Vice Mayor Lynn Chow.
Mayor.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to just recuse myself right now.
Okay.
I'm going to follow the directions.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. So let's begin the conversation on, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Let's turn this over to Mr. Girton for the presentation.
That was it. Wasn't that a great presentation? I thought you were letting me off, Mayor. Okay. So no surprise to everybody that we're here. We got direction from the council at the last council meeting when the council approved the certificate of sufficiency for the ballot initiative. Just for the record, the initiative is titled Opposition to the Fort Ord Regional and Greenway Project running through the city of Delray Oaks. Excuse me. At that meeting, the council directed staff to come back to this meeting with a what's called a 9212 report. 9212 refers to the section of the California Elections Code, which gives the council the ability to direct that this report be created. Really, staff put this together. I'd like to point out in a short time frame, excuse me, with limited resources. So we've done the best that we can to try to analyze the impacts associated with this ballot initiative potentially. Excuse me. Sorry, I think I've got the sore throat thing that everyone else has. Yeah, so in a short amount of time, we staff tried to analyze what the potential impacts are relative to the passing of this initiative if it were to pass. Just the caveat on this is that I always reserve the right to be shown that I'm wrong on something or that we've missed something. And if that's the case, as we go forward, we have time to come back to the council with any new information that we gather either from the community or from our partners or from any further research. So if we do learn new things, we will come back to the council and present those for you so that the community is aware of any new information relative to this. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex to discuss. So part of the 9212 plan, our report, sorry, was to cover impacts in seven different areas. We're going to combine those because some of them cover basically the same thing, and we can condense it all into one thing. In the report, we laid it out for each one, but we'll condense it in the interest of time. Mostly it's relative to fiscal impacts, to consistency with the general plan, with any other plans that we have, such as the circulation element, use of land, retention of business. And then there were 4 other items that the council asked us to consider: impacts to the FORTAG master agreement, CEQA implications, preemption, the city's ability to direct other agencies such as Caltrans and condition what they're able to do on their controlled properties, and then to the best of our ability to try to define what a formal path means. So that's what we endeavored to do. And I'm going to turn it over to Alex to discuss the consistency with the plans, with the general plan, circulation element, housing element. Then he'll also talk about the FORTAG master agreement and CEQA considerations and preemption.
Thank you, City Manager Gurton. So procedurally, how this will work is, because the initiative is in contrast to many initiatives that affect land use where there is specific code sections written that we would just sort of plug into the general plan and municipal code, because this is styled more generally with respect to these trails, whether or not the council adopts it tonight or sends it to the vote, there'll be some work on the back end to exercise your discretion to implement and to make consistent the general plan and the zoning code with the directive in the initiative. So procedurally, that's how that will happen. And that'll mean coming back for the city manager and myself working to make some reasonable edits where necessary to make that happen. With respect to CEQA, the initiative itself is not subject to CEQA. Any projects with respect to trails coming before the council, again, because this is sort of more of a broad initiative, will have to be analyzed under CEQA. With respect to I'm trying to remember the preemption, you'll see in the packet there that while the city, if this initiative passed, cannot permit a path in certain parts of the city has no right to tell Caltrans, owner and operator and maintainer of 218 of the state, if they decided to put a tunnel under 218, that would be in their purview. And as a state, that decision would preempt our local land use controls. With respect to the FORTAG agreement, all the jurisdictions, underlying jurisdictions, have signed the master agreement, which says we will agree where a specific alignment will be. So that's what the city has promised and agreed to, but the city has not agreed to specific routing. And indeed, the master agreement specifically acknowledges the fact that, we will in the future agree to where the specific alignment will be. So the city's not under an obligation with respect to the master agreement. Now, there could be an argument, well, you've got to put a path in somewhere. And if we were precluded from doing it elsewhere in the city, we would, I suppose, have some exposure there. But there's also a frustration of purpose with respect to, when we agreed with TAMC and the rest of the underlying jurisdictions about alignment, we've had an intervening citizens initiative which would prohibit the placement of the path if indeed 218 was not an option. So those are some of those things to think about that I talk in the staff report there, and I'm happy to answer any questions with respect to those items.
Okay, why don't we you want to hold questions to the end, Mayor? And I'll cover the rest. Okay.
Yeah, please.
So one of the other considerations for impacts is on the uses of land, specifically by the city. So uses of any of our properties, uses of open space, uses of vacant properties.
And the primary potential impact of that by designating pathways only on certain roads throughout the city. The biggest potential, well, depending on how broadly we view the definition of paths and trails and putting that on certain roadways, potentially could impact any future development of parkland. So any new trails, say in Work Memorial Park, or doing any additional trails in Delray Oaks, in Delray Park. Some of that needs to be worked out, and Alex can talk a little bit about that as well, about how we define what a formal trail is. And that's some of the work that'll go into actually developing an ordinance if this measure is to pass. But then also for our Fort Ord properties, if we're working with a developer, could potentially make things difficult in terms of what a developer would see out there, or what we as a community would want to see out there in terms of providing pathways that don't go along the certain designated routes envisioned in this measure. So those would be the potential impacts to land use. The other one is retention, attraction and retention of businesses. I'm not really going to get into that in the report. We provide a link to a website that provides studies that show the economic development benefits of bikeways and trails to cities and to business districts. I didn't find a sample of a report that showed negative impacts of bike paths or trails. I'm not saying that they don't exist, and if somebody has a sample of that, please send that to city staff and we'll make sure that that gets included. I just didn't find any in my quick research. But generally speaking, bike paths and trails are seen as an economic benefit, and in several ways they help with property values. But bikeways like this that are regional and tend to interconnect communities provide benefits to the businesses that are adjacent to the trails, and people tend to buy hard sales, which would be bikes, biking clothing, things like that, so that they can participate in that activity, but then also purchasing food and other soft items like that when they're actually on the trails. So there are studies that show benefits associated with that, and anybody wants to read those, we'll be happy to provide those links. So the final thing is fiscal impacts and impacts to potential infrastructure for the future. Really, the fiscal impacts associated with this, as I said in the report, is really just the staff time so far, my time, Alex's time, the time that's gone in. We haven't been tracking that, but that is a cost that has gone into the entire FORTAG project, but also the ballot initiative. The real cost for the city will be the cost for an election. Some of the costs, if we do the election in June, which is the regularly scheduled election that the county is already having, some of those costs are already calculated are already included in the city's budget because we'll already be participating potentially in that election for the mayoral election, assuming that we have more than two, I think. Is that how that works, right, Alex?
More than two
candidates.
Candidates, right? Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
So
I don't think it's the mayoral. I think it's we'll have a sheriff's election. Are you talking about the June election?
The June election, right?
Yeah, no mayoral in June.
No mayoral?
No.
Okay. All right. Then I'm wrong about that. Then we don't have any costs, and the full cost would be associated with this ballot initiative. And the estimated cost for that is about $9,000 to $10,000. If you were to choose to do a special election that was just a Delray Oaks city election separate from the county, the cost for that would be the estimated cost for that is, depending on the type of election we do, is anywhere from $29,000 to $35,000 for that. So that's one of the primary considerations for the recommendation to wait until the consolidated election in June. Other fiscal impacts. Well, here, let me talk about the infrastructure impacts. So this one's a little trickier because it's, again, it's potential impacts. So we're not stating that these are definite impacts, but the definite impact to the infrastructure funding is the loss of the $10.3 million in grant funding that this section of the Fortag Trail has received. We did confirm with the TAMC staff that if the initiative passes, then TAMC right now does not have any intention of proceeding with this section of the trail. That means that they will be returning the $10.3 million grant funding. So that's a direct impact to the finances for the infrastructure relative to this section of the Fortag Trail. The potential for future infrastructure funding is really the potential impacts to the city's ability to get grant funding in the future, and TAMC as our regional partner to get grant funding in the future. When we work on transportation projects and we look for transportation funding, our key partner in that is TAMC. And they're usually the ones who bring ideas to us for funding. They're aware of our projects and our needs, and they look for funding resources with us, for us, and they're also a pass-through for a lot of funding that they look for regional projects for. Now, I can't say that TAMC is going to suddenly turn off the spigot for us, or that the state's going to turn off the spigot or anything like that. I can tell you, and it is in the report, that this will impact negatively our relationship with TAMC as a key partner in that part of our business. I can't calculate for anybody what that means, but it could have further impacts on our ability and TAMC's ability to get additional funding as we go forward, because one of the considerations for granting agencies when they're considering projects and considering agencies asking for projects is on past performance of grant projects. And so not fulfilling a promised project and returning $10 million is a pretty significant black mark on it's not a direct black mark on the city of Delray Oaks, but it is relative to a decision that would be made in our city that impacts then our regional partners. So I don't know how exactly that potentially impacts our grant funding, or if it even really does impact our grant funding. All I can tell you is that it is a potential risk that is associated with the passing of this ballot initiative. So that's a consideration that we need to take into account. Like I said, it is a significant issue on grant applications relative to performance of past projects. So that's the real major risk of the ballot initiative passing in terms of any future funding sources that we might be looking for additional projects going through the city. One other thing that I did not include in the report, and this is an example of getting things done quickly with limited resources. I did mean to include in the fiscal analysis the fact that one of the other potential benefits of the measure passing is that we wouldn't have any ongoing maintenance costs associated with this section of the Fortag Trail. We do have ongoing maintenance for the trail that currently exists through the city. We've had that for as long as the trails have been there. But ongoing maintenance of this section of the Fortag Trail would no longer be a consideration for the city. So that's something that I meant to include in the analysis in the report, but forgot. So just want to make sure everybody has that. We will add that to the report. So anything anywhere the report is posted will be the updated report. And so with that, I think I've talked long enough. So I think Alex and I are ready to take questions if there are any questions.
Wonderful, thank you. So let's start with Vice Mayor Lintel. You're muted. There you go.
Thank you. My preference is still to see the bike trail go down Highway 218. I think that a barrier could be put up to protect bicyclists from the speed of the motor vehicles. And I think it might tend to slow down the motor vehicles, which would be a very positive thing. I live on Rosita, and there's times in the day when it's very difficult for me to get out onto 218, especially making a left-hand turn because there's traffic coming both directions. Thank you.
Mr. Gagliotti.
So my question is a procedural question. So there's two directions that the council can go and one decision that needs to be made. And for me personally, I can participate in one of those. So I asked the council, how is the council going to address that? Because we could make a decision as a council to adopt the initiative as is tonight and it goes forward, or we could make a decision to send it to the voters. So that's kind of the first gating question for me. Procedurally, how are we planning on addressing that?
So right now it's questions and then we go to the public and then we come back. And
Right, I'm
I
asking
think,
you a question. It's a clarifying question. Exactly. I'm
Right.
following exactly the procedure.
right. And so I think once a motion is made, then we will know, and then you will know.
Well, I can ask a clarifying question of the council now, and the council can enter into that discussion and we can decide that.
Okay.
So as a council, what is the wish here? Is someone going?
So what I'd like to do is have a conversation and then go out to the public. I think the public should have input into the direction we go.
Whether we get.
Does that make
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No,
I
mean,
don't want to cut you off.
Mayor, you're absolutely right. That
Okay.
clarifies basically then the wish of the council and how we're going to address it.
Okay. Anything further?
No, that was, I have one question, a procedural question.
Okay. And are you clear?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's move on to Mr. Donaldson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So at this point, is it just questions? Because
Yes.
I would like to make a statement, but I don't have any questions, but I would like to mention that within the voter guide for the election, according to what was in the staff report, our city attorney will be providing the impartial summary for the initiative and written arguments, both for and against, that are 300 words or less can be submitted by the 11th of March. So it's kind of a procedural question, and just verifying that and letting the public know that they have the opportunity to provide those arguments. And as part of the voter guide, our city attorney will be providing that impartial summary.
Okay. Any further questions?
No, like I said, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to mention that as part of an administrative piece.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
So I have a couple, not a question, but I'd like some, for those folks that may not have read the report, Alex or John, could you please clarify? I remember there being something in there about Caltrans and the regional parks having the ability to do whatever they would like. Could you address that so everyone is clear?
Yeah, through the mayor. my understanding of this initiative is that we prohibited the path in certain, or limited to certain spaces in Delray Oaks, and prohibit tunnels under 218. But that's only to the extent that Delray Oaks has the authority to permit or to not permit something like that. So going back to preemption, if Caltrans wanted to make a tunnel under 218, the city wouldn't be able to stop them. Now, where their land ended and the city began, could be one thing. Also, too, the Regional Parks District, as the owner of the property there, it's up to them sort of where the path goes through the Parks District. So the city can only exercise the authority that it has with respect to permitting. We don't have permitting authority over the state or other agencies.
Thank you for that clarification. I don't have any further questions, so what I'd like to do is go out to the public. Everyone, please raise your hand so we're not waiting in between. And I'll take the first hand that's raised.
I don't believe you checked with Councilmember Shirley on this.
She's recused herself.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Randy Birch. Randy, you have your hand up?
Yeah, give me just a second. I'm reading a letter that was submitted
Okay.
through the website.
Okay.
We can't hear it, Randy.
Randy, we're not hearing it.
Sorry about that. I'll just read it. Hello, fellow residents of Delray Oaks. After hearing my neighbors discuss the FORTAG plans, I thought I would chime in with my 2 cents. With the mayor and city council, or with council who claim to be anti-development, why is the city spending time and money on this project? The open space / trail will not bring any money into the city, but rather take funds from the city for maintenance and security. Why is the city not focusing on development that will actually bring funds into the city? Please do not start another committee for this, because we don't need to be eating the city's budget on nonsense. What are the consequences and repercussions of not continuing with the FORTAG? Will the county just write off their wasted time and funding for this project? And if that happens, isn't Delray Oaks responsible for wasting county taxpayer money? Ultimately, who is responsible for the FORTAG mess, the mayor and council, or the residents for not wanting this in the first place? From a Delray Oaks resident.
Thank you, Randy. Karen, do you see any hands?
I'm not seeing any. Oh, yes. Kathleen Weiberg.
Kathleen, go ahead. Kathleen?
Can you hear me?
Yes, but do you have another device close to you? Do you have 2 computers on in your home?
I think can you hear me better? Is it
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
Okay. I was interested in John's comment there at the end about the maintenance, because that has been a question that has come up over and over and over, and no one has written on one of these ridiculously lengthy reports that we have heard. I mean, some of them have been done very nicely, but I'm of the opinion that someone got given the job to make this as lengthy and painful as possible, some of these reports, even though they were done nicely. But the maintenance costs are an important issue if this would go through. And all the reports about the expenses for an election, I understand are probably true, but I think that is it's a something we all need to share blame for. Myself, because I wasn't on the ball as early as I should have been, but the city council members and officials, even before some of the council members that are presently serving, I think overstepped their bounds a great deal to make agreements with TAMC and FORTAG without going to a vote for the people in this larger project that affects us all. And it is not going to bring, gobs of money into the city as someone has said over and over and over again, it's going to cost us a lot of money. You say, oh, we're giving up $10 million, but we're not. You know, that's money we put in. We're taxpayers. They're all getting the money from us. And they're going to continue to get it from us by floating bonds because this overruns or that maintenance or something. So I really think it should have been brought to the people right in 2018 or whenever it started, 16, and been part of the plan. The people should have been part of it. So, and as far as if it gets to a vote, I would like to know more about the attorney writing the impartial summary for the vote. Those are just some notes I made from listening to you all this evening. I think I've expressed myself on other matters before. That's all I wanted to say is I think it's just shooting from, it was, I don't know what advantages or pluses folks saw that wanted this years ago and were pressing to put it on and making agreements without the residents realizing what was going on. I think it was high-handed kind of as I don't mean to be rude, but that's sort of it.
Thank you. Karen Harris. Ms. Harris, we can't hear you. There we go. Could you please start the clock over, Randy?
Sorry. Madam Mayor, City Council, City Manager, and Attorney Lorca. I'm happy to be able to comment tonight on this very important decision. I think it's important for the city to uphold its agreements. The Fort Taggart Trail has been in discussions, and the public had many opportunities to weigh in and give their ideas. They keep coming back to us for more ideas and what we would like to see. They made their best decisions based upon their analysis. It's important to see that we have our general plan. The city council was elected by the citizens to follow through with our general plan. And this project does a lot to meet the general plan requirements by connecting our city, providing more access to public open spaces, reducing cars, automobile emissions. There's a lot that this project will do, and it's 10 million for our city. So we may be paying the taxes, sure, but why don't we get the benefits of it? And some people say that it may be costing the city and not benefiting us, but if our property values increase, so I think that's a big benefit. And like City Manager Gorgon mentioned, it would help businesses too, and maybe even new businesses that come in. And so there are a lot of reasons, and by snubbing for TAMC in this important project, I think is not very wise. And I just don't see how we can approve something that goes against our general plan. And it would tie, the whole project, any project moving forward, to expensive ballots, and then also requiring any new trails or paths to go down areas that we have no authority over, like Canyon Del Rey or through the Frog Pond. So I just see that this is a big mess. I'm really sorry that we've gotten into this situation. I was looking forward to this project, connecting both sides of our city, making us safer, opening up the open spaces for us, using the butterfly garden as an amenity. I'm looking forward to all of those things. And to have this come up is really disturbing for me. I hope that we can move forward, and whatever's the best way, whatever TAMC would like to see us do, I'm sure it's not to adopt this initiative. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Jerry Vanderswan. Randy, can you start the clock over?
That's okay.
There you go.
I probably won't need that much time. But first, I would like to thank Councilman Donaldson for his words last month. It is so refreshing to have a council person put aside his personal desires and understand that there are legitimate concerns regarding the FORTAG proposed route through our city. It has been discouraging, over the last 5 years, attending several meetings with the council, FORTAG, and Parks Department, expressing our concerns and being told that these concerns don't matter, and that this project takes precedence over the concerns of the citizens of Delray Oaks and those who will be directly impacted by the project. Councilmember Donaldson represents the people of this city. He does not represent the regional interests of the people outside of our city. He is listening to the people and giving voice to our concerns. Shouldn't our city staff and elected officials be doing that? Shouldn't we all be doing that? Most of us are not opposed to some sort of recreational trail, but most of us are opposed to the current path FORTAG has proposed. Just come up with a better plan. It's pretty much that simple. I would request that the council approve the initiative tonight and not require it to be submitted onto the June ballot. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Frank Lucido.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, having some internet issues here, but hopefully you can hear me.
Yep, you're good.
All right. I agree that this has been a long and trying issue. The staff report was interesting in that it seemed to be biased towards the people who support the current FORTAG path. Staff report mentions all the benefits of a recreation trail by providing references to certain published articles. But where's the mention of the grand jury report about the bike path to nowhere? Where is that same analysis regarding public safety issues and similar types of paths? For example, the coastal trail and the trails through Laguna Grande Park. Does the staff report address the fact that even though Caltrans still controls the land where the tunnel will be, who's responsible to maintain that tunnel? Does the staff report address the fact that the Park District still will control the portion of the path in the Frog Pond, but will the city be responsible to maintain that portion of the trail? Where's the mention of the added liability insurance the city will need to cover anything that happens along this trail? What's the dollar amount the city will be on the hook for when it comes to dealing with anything and everything that comes with this path? And as far as benefits to businesses go, there are no businesses along this path other than Safeway and the gas station. And I don't see cyclists buying any gasoline anytime soon. It's pretty clear who supports this FORTAG path. That group has made itself known with all its money, media, and might. And surely an ad campaign is on its way that will bombard social media and the airways with more hyperbole. But why is it that with all their tools at their disposal and the resources and the people they have supporting this trail, that they're trying to get rid of the council member who represents the will of the people of the city? Most of the people who support the FORTAG path, that support is coming from outside of the city. The residents are largely in favor of a trail, just not this particular path. So when politicians gain office on the guise of listening to the people, even criticize the previous mayor for not doing so, why then do those politicians try to remove the one council member representing what the people want to say? Let me restate that question. Why would that politician advocate and/or imply the removal of that one council member? This administration is not honoring the promises they made in order to get elected. It's not too late. Time is running out. Do the right thing. Listen to the people.
Thank you, Frank. Patrice Vecchione.
This project is larger than any of us who currently live in Delray Oaks. It will be here for the region for the future. And it is important as a sustainable way to increase to increase the sustainability of this entire region. It's not just about us, folks. I'd like to comment on Ms. Lintel's suggestion about going back to 218. Please, we have already talked about that. Caltrans has made it clear that is not an option. As a bike rider, it would be a terrible route. I'd ride. It would be dangerous and a ridiculous route. It's not going to happen. Let's put that to bed where it should be put in the first place. Anyone who says that the residents were not informed about this has not been paying attention. Residents have been informed about this since its beginning. I think it was 2015. We're here now only because of a small group of people who lied to residents in order to create this initiative by saying homelessness is going to be an issue and the assorted other issues. It's going to ruin the frog pond. Those are not true. It's not factual. Those of us who are for this based in looking at our future and based in facts and reality, not hyperbole. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Vicky Lucido. Vicky, we can't hear you. Vicky? I saw you unmuted there for a minute. There you are. Can you say something?
Okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Internet, I don't know why.
Yeah, we can hear
So
you.
hopefully, okay. Good evening. Okay, thank
And now we can't. But there you are.
That the proposed highway, yeah, I'm sorry. Tamsi actually said that the proposed Highway 218 alternative working.
You're coming in and out.
Hello?
You're coming in and out.
Hello? Did you know what? Let me try Frank's phone.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the next comment. You figure out your
I'm
technology.
sorry. I'm gonna get on my phone instead.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the next comment and then we'll call on you when you get it figured out.
I'm doing it right now.
Okay, Mr. Krieger.
Yeah, hello. Just wanted to address a few of the things, that keep coming up, and I'll let the city manager correct me if I've misunderstood, but there is no additional liability for the trail. The city has liability for the roads for what we have now. We're not going to have to go out and purchase any additional liability. In fact, there's a case made in the report that we actually incur additional liability by not providing a safer way across 218. But you can argue that. There's also the maintenance cost. It's not an issue. We already maintain the city. We're not making the city any bigger. They have stated that the maintenance costs will be manageable. Ron does a great job. He goes out, he brings in help. They maintain the city. It's picked up, it's clean. That's going to continue, trail or no trail. And again, I would welcome the people who have all the doomsayers visions to start showing some reports. I mean, I have spent hours and hours and more hours I care to think how many I've spent reading and studying this issue, and most of what I find is very positive. It starts off people worried, and it turns out they're very, very happy to have the trails in the end. So, and the issues they all feared don't come to fruition. So if there's other research out there, then let's show it. And not the bike trail to nowhere. That is nothing to do with what we're doing here. And in fact, if you read into that, that's a real mischaracterization. But again, that has nothing to do with what doing it with our trail. It's a totally different thing. I always tell you, many residents do support FORTAG. I talked within days of the, it took me probably a couple of days, and I ran across 4 or 5 of my neighbors who had signed the petition. Once they realized it was sort of against FORTAG, they regretted signing it. And they were like, I didn't mean to sign it. Don't worry about it. You signed it. It's okay. We'll take it to a vote and we'll let people speak. And that would be my message is we don't need to adopt this tonight. The other side is making a big deal about the people who are against it. They want to vote, they want a voice. Well, let's give the people a voice. Let's take the initiative and let people vote on it. The city council should not adopt this tonight. They should let the people of Delray Oaks have their say in it. So put it on the ballot in June and let's have the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Vicky, let's try this again. But you're muted. Vicky, can you hear me? If there are any further public comments, please raise your hand now so we can move through. Okay,
Hearing me
Vicky?
now? I'm sorry,
Yes.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
So please, go ahead.
So frustrating. Okay. Are you there?
Yes, the clock is running.
Okay. Is your phone on, Frank? Okay, can you hear me, Mayor?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Vicky,
All right, I'm gonna, oh,
go
God.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I'm trying. My phone, for some reason, our internet's being dumb. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Vicky, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Here we go. Okay.
That's okay.
All right, Tamsin has
Randy,
already said that one.
Vicky, hang on just a minute. Vicky, hang on just a minute.
Yes.
Randy, can you please restart the clock? Okay, Vicky, go.
Okay, thank you. I'm just gonna start from the beginning. Tamsi has already been said that once this path is built, the rest is up to the city. They'll be moving on. Tamsi actually said that the proposed Highway 218 alternative would be too expensive to maintain. Well, with maintenance, water runoff into creeks, erosion and safety issues, etc. But where are all those issues mentioned in this staff report in regard to FORTAG's path? Why did the staff report leave that out? Where are all the maintenance and safety issues in this staff report? And Tamsi has even made implied threats that if the city rejects the FORTAG path, the city will be responsible for damage to Tamsi's reputation, whatever that means, and loss of future funding. But we have never gotten any funding from them. So what was the difference? Tamsi is shifting responsibility. Tamsi has offered us something we don't want. Then they say, if you don't take it, we're going to sue you. Really? And despite what one person just said, it was a lot more than just a few people. It was hundreds of people. Tamsi has also implied that if the tunnel is not built, anything happens on Highway 218 will be the city's fault. Not Caltrans who owns it, but the city's fault. So who's using scare tactics now? Where is the report regarding all the dangerous and unsafe incidents on Highway 218 crosswalks over the past 10, 20, and 30 years? However long it has been since the current bike path was constructed on Highway 218. It's been there for what, 30 years or so? And where is the report demonstrating how unsafe that path is? And if it is unsafe, how will the newly designed Safeway Shell gas station, no turn lane into Safeway, be any safer? In fact, I had a dream last night that there were all kinds of bicycles and wheelchairs trying to get across while people went out of Safeway. One would think that if the city had one of their employees on the FORTAG design team, which we do have, these issues will be addressed in the staff report. Thank you, and thank you for bearing with me with this internet connection. Bye.
Thanks, Vicky. Okay, any other public comment? Now is the time. Okay, seeing none.
No, I don't see any.
Okay.
Sorry.
So seeing none, we're gonna bring it back to the council. I would, I want the voters to have their day and would like to move to approve the resolution placing the initiative on the June 22nd primary ballot.
I'll second that.
Okay. So let's have some conversation. Ms. Lintel.
I agree. I think it's, we're representing the people, and I think it's time for the people to have a voice in the decision here. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gagliotti?
Yeah, I think when the 4-track trail was initially, when it started its outreach, there was opposition, but I mean, frankly, it was small, and it was overwhelmingly drowned out by the supporters of there. But that opposition has grown. I think the public process has actually worked. But in response, I think the proponents have also gotten louder. And for me personally, I think that the decision of the council, where this project goes and what and whether it goes, was taken out of our hands when the initiative received enough signatures to go to the vote of the people. And so I think the people have spoken, and I think as elected officials, we respond, and I think this should go to the vote. And we heard it in public comment on both sides tonight. So I agree with that.
Okay, Mr. Donaldson?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And bottom line is, I also support the staff's recommendation. And, I feel like we've kind of hit a culminating point here as we take that last step before the ballot initiative actually goes to the voters. And I want to step back and thank the staff for providing their analysis. And I would also like to highlight some of the points that are in the staff report, some of which the city manager, city attorney, and members of our public have already touched upon, but I just want to highlight them once again. A significant portion of the report compares this project to our general plan regarding bike and pedestrian circulation throughout the city. It mentions improving and maintaining a network of paths and bikeways, encouraging healthy transportation, and relying less on cars. Those goals are consistent with 4TAG and are widely supported by our citizens, regardless of where you stand on the project. But this initiative is about the route of the 4TAG trail, and the general plan isn't designed specifically to address that. The report also addresses the city's lack of authority over Caltrans regarding Highway 218 and the Regional Parks District regarding the Frog Pond and their reluctance to deviate from the current trail alignment, which further illustrates our city's lack of choice in determining the actual route. It should also be noted that the Caltrans statement that's in the report opposing the construction of a Class 1 bike path does not mention that a Class 2 bike path already exists that could potentially connect the trail segments. There's also a reference that future trail plans for our four-door development would have to go through the ballot initiative process. The possibility of future initiatives beyond just bike and pedestrian trails or potential legal action is a likely scenario that our city and any developer will have to expect and plan for. To address the concern that the city could be held liable for funds that have already been expended on the project if the initiative passes, the report mentions that the city entered into a master agreement that compels us to participate in the planning process, but doesn't commit the city to allowing the trail on a particular location. Therefore, the city would have very limited to no liability if the trail location is limited to those areas stated in the initiative. As some of the folks have mentioned, I think it would be helpful to add some information to the report. For an unbiased perspective, I think there should be information regarding both benefits and potential drawbacks to the project. And as also was mentioned, I think those maintenance and policing costs for the trail need to be added. And then finally, There's a reference to the potential harm to TAMSI if the initiative succeeds, which might include forfeiting grant money and jeopardizing future funding, the loss of funds for other sections of the Fortag Trail, and potential harm to their reputation. From the time this project was introduced, TAMSI was aware of opposition that persisted as community meetings and workshops were conducted. Knowing that overall situation, Delray Oaks was still chosen as the first segment, and all the chips have been placed on this little city. So whatever happens, I hope the final outcome is accepted by everyone involved and we can finally move on. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have to say. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you. I have nothing further. I'd like to have the vote. So Karen, could you please do a roll call vote?
Councilmember Donaldson,
Aye.
Councilmember Gagliotti,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lintel,
Aye.
Mayor Kerr.
Aye. So it's a unanimous vote to place the initiative on the June 22 primary ballot. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to new business item number 2, consider SB 1383 Ordinance 310. This is the first reading. Thank you, Ms. Shirley, for coming back. I'd like to turn this over to Jeff Hoyne.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and everyone else who has visited us this evening. We are considering a new organic waste disposal reduction ordinance as mandated under SB 1383. In September of, I believe, 2016, SB 83 started making its way through the legislature. The goal was to reduce organic waste contribution to our waste stream by 50% in 2020, and then by 75% before 2025. With that mandate by the state law came several different requirements, one of which is the ability to regulate and to enforce the waste disposal requirements under that new statute. This is the first reading of a new organic waste reduction ordinance. It is drafted in cooperation with the Monterey Regional Waste Management District, of which the city of Delray Oaks is a participant. We have been working with them and with the other member agencies to have this draft ordinance proposed. It will be added to our code, our municipal code, should it be approved at a second reading next month. I am willing to take any questions. You will see, the one thing I'll point out, you will see that it says for this particular action, there will be no economic impact. However, other economic impacts under SB 1383 have been addressed in past staff reports and in future staff reports. I'll give an example of that. Just so you know, we agreed to an MOU with the Waste Management District for monitoring and enforcement of SB 1383 requirements, such as lid flipping, to make sure that consumers along their pickup routes are complying with the mandates to reduce organic waste, and also some other items such as public education and outreach, and some other requirements under SB 1383 that if we were to do it as a single entity would be cost prohibitive. So we've done it through the Waste Management District, and that was approved last month, I believe. The one thing I would like to say is I would like to thank Alex Lorca, our city attorney. The complexity of this with such a small staff has been a very heavy lift. And with City Manager John Gurton and myself and Alex and staff assisting, most cities have full-time employees who go through this, whether they are with Public Works or other organizations that, other assignments that review these things for their cities. So this was truly a team effort, all the way down to Karen and Randy, who prepared the documents for this staff report and for this council packet. I'm willing to answer any questions. Additionally, we do have our consultants through HF&H, Dave Hilton and Rob Hilton. They work for the Waste Management District and the member agencies and have assisted in this process all the way through. This is just one of 3 or 4 steps that we have to comply with SB 1383. For now, tonight, after the next one, which is the amended agreement for the franchise agreement, should be the last related to this, at least for this fiscal year. So I'm willing to answer questions or hopefully refer it to Dave or Rob from HF&H, because they're the experts.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Vice Mayor Lintel, let's start with you.
I have no questions, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gagliotti,
No questions.
Mr. Donaldson.
No, I also don't have any questions, but I would like to say that, capturing as much organic product that we can as goodness across many levels. And I'm participating in an ad hoc committee between Monterey One Water and the Regional Waste Management District. And what we are looking to do is capture that organic waste and convert it into energy to ultimately make a microgrid. And, like I said, there's so much goodness on so many levels, from reducing our reliance on fossil fuels to providing a more reliable system that we can use, reducing our reliance on PG&E, and then ultimately going down to the ratepayers where it may reduce some of that cost. So across the board, there's a lot of goodness held within this bill. And that's all that I had to say. Thanks.
Okay, Ms. Shirley.
Thank you. Chief Hoyne, I just have a few questions for you. I'm in a huge support of this ordinance, but in terms of it playing out in our city, I know that this might be difficult for our multiple family dwelling, the Oaks. I'm wondering if you are talking with the Oaks and collaborating with them to see how they're going to handle this ordinance. Have you had communication with them?
We haven't started yet. Ordinances are mandated by the state, and we have to have an ordinance on the books. And once that ordinance is accepted, then we'll know what the city council's direction is exactly how we need to proceed. And once we do that, we'll reach out to the Oaks, being basically the main or the only, multifamily housing in the city. Once we have direction from the council and once all the sections of the ordinance are approved through a second reading, then we'll start working to figure this out and work collaboratively with them. Sorry about that. But once we do that, we'll be able to chart a clear path forward. One of the things that there are certain timelines that we have waivers for, or certain things that we have waivers for in the ordinance that we'll be able to work through and provide to the Oaks to make sure that not only will we comply with the state law, but we'll also be able to bring the Oaks on board with the requirements in a phased manner or as we need to, without making it punitive to their homes.
Okay, that's good. That's good to hear, because I'm sure it's going to be a new system for them. I had another question too, in terms of our edible food generators. I'm assuming, is Safeway the only one who qualifies in our city? I see Rob shaking his head yes. Okay, so we don't have to worry about like the Moose Lodge or 7-Eleven or those places. It's just Safeway, correct?
That's correct. All of those other generators are too small.
Okay. Good. And then the section on the Cal Green recycling requirements, I was just wondering if that changes how I don't think we ask for landscaping permits I'm just wondering that that part of the ordinance, will that affect planning commission in terms of looking at plans and landscaping? Rob, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, it shouldn't affect your planning commission. It will affect your building counter in terms of just making sure that folks are doing the recycling that needs to be done within a given project.
Okay. And then Rob, you probably can answer this one. I thought in the 1383 legislation, the cities were required to purchase a certain amount of recycled material. I didn't see that in this ordinance. Is
That's
that
correct. That doesn't need to be an ordinance. That can be done through your administrative policies. And so that's another piece that will come to you, as Chief Hoyne indicated, at a later date. It's something that you can adopt next year, actually, as long as you comply with it by the end of the year.
Oh, good. So we have a whole year to figure that out. Okay. All right. And then in terms of, I know in the ordinance, it talks about educational materials, like for, giving new tenants in the multifamily residents information about that. I'm assuming that information, that educational information comes from the hauler.
Correct. It'll come from Green Waste Recovery, and that's funded through the amendment that'll be the next item that we hear.
Got it. Okay. All right. I think that covers all my questions for this agenda item. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. My question was, is this it was a long and complicated ordinance. Is this a standard ordinance that other cities are also, adopting for their own unique circumstances?
That's correct. So the state created a model ordinance that all of the jurisdictions in the state could look at. The model has a bit of a choose your own adventure path in it. And so we worked with the jurisdictions in the Monterey Regional Waste Management District to align that with the system that you have in your communities. And then the city attorney did the heavy lifting of conforming it to your local municipal code. So a lot of hands in the pie.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think Ms. Shirley asked, I was curious as to the compost element as well. Can we as residents qualify for the city compost?
With a city the size of Delray Oaks, you're going to need all hands to be able to place the amount of compost that you need to and mulch that you need to place in your community. And I think actually, again, that's a place where being part of the Monterey Regional Waste Management District and that energy project that Councilmember Donaldson was talking about can be a big help to you.
Wonderful. So on that, let's go out to the public. Any questions, comments about this ordinance?
I don't see any hands, Mayor.
I'm not either. So I want to bring it back. Pat, any last minute comments?
No, I don't have any. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gagliotti?
No, looking forward to it.
Mr. Donaldson?
No, move to approve.
Yeah.
Okay. And Ms. Shirley?
I'll second that.
Okay. I think John already did.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, I didn't. I'm agreeing. No, please.
Okay.
Kim, please take the second on this.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Okay, so Karen, you got that? Okay. I just wanted to say, thank you for the Hiltons for coming and Jeff for working on this. This is a great example of regional partnerships to coordinate compliance on at reduced and shared costs. And it also addresses methane capture to help lower our greenhouse gas emissions. It is a win-win, even if it wasn't a state mandated new law. So thank you very much. On that, Karen, would you do a roll call?
Councilmember Gagliotti?
Aye.
Councilmember Donaldson?
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lintel?
Aye.
Mayor Kerr?
Aye. So the SB 1383 Ordinance 310's first reading has been approved unanimously. So on that, let's move on to consider a franchise agreement amendment with Green Waste for solid waste recycling and organics collection services. Over to you, Mr. Hoyne.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Once again, I will be talking about something that I have spent a great deal of time from the Police Academy on through my MPA dealing with, which is waste management. Not really. That it's something we didn't talk about in the academy, but I've learned a great deal. I'd like to thank Dave and Rob Hilton and the Waste Management District and also Green Waste for assisting me with this. I had a lot of emails and stupid questions that I sent to them, and they helped to clarify some things to get this particular item. This item is an action item to recommend the City Council authorize the city manager to execute the attached amendment to our franchise agreement for waste management services with Green Waste Recovery. And this will include 4 particular items. 1, provisions bringing the city and the contractor, both ourselves and Green Waste, into compliance with the requirements of 1383. 2, resolving their recovery, Green Waste Recovery's claims for extraordinary rate adjustment related to unanticipated events that impacted the franchise agreement. And the majority of that being the COVID-related pandemic that we've all been dealing with. 3, clarifying the process and results of the cost-based rate adjustment. And that is written into the original franchise agreement, how we work out rate adjustments on a regular basis. And then also approving an assignment of the franchise agreement resulting from a change in ownership of Green Waste Recovery. And the basic idea of that is Green Waste has an offer to be changed in ownership to a larger corporation. However, the local management of our franchise agreement will remain the same. Green Waste will remain the same company that they are, and the management for now will remain in place. Also, the same standards that we had in our original franchise agreement will still be maintained. As part of this particular staff report, one of the attachments was an assignment and review report by our consultant, HF&H, with the Hiltons, here to speak about that, where they assessed the viability of this and some of the requirements, pitfalls, and the overall viability of that change in assignment. So this is 2 things: to basically amend our franchise agreement and, of course, approve the change in control for Green Waste Recovery. I will certainly have to rely on Rob and David on this one for the technical aspects of it. Additionally, we have Emily Hansen from Green Waste Recovery, who is also here to answer any questions that you may have. And I will go ahead and turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. All right, Ms. Lintel.
I have no questions at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Gagliotti.
Question.
I'm sorry, did you say no questions?
Yeah, no question.
Okay, I didn't hear you, sorry. Mr. Donaldson?
Yeah, just one question. It shows that the agreement is scheduled to terminate on April 30th, 2030. And I was just wondering why that date. Is there any significance to it?
Yeah, Councilmember Donaldson, the original one was written into agreement on January 1st, 2014 with an expiration of that 2030 date, and we're just continuing with that original expiration date. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rob or David, but that is the reason.
That's correct.
Okay, no other questions. Thank you.
Ms. Shirley?
Thank you. I do have a question. Dave, I'll just address it to you since I see you here. That analysis that your company, that you did with Green Waste Recovery, I know you have lots of recommendations for them. I'm wondering how those recommendations are received by Green Waste, and how do we make sure they're implemented? Is there some follow-up to that?
All of the recommendations and mitigations which we recommended, we built into the amendment. And so by passing the amendment, you are essentially adopting, and Green Waste has accepted that they will take those mitigations into consideration and fold them into their current services and responsibilities which they need to provide.
Okay, super, that's great. And then in the amendment in Exhibit C, public education and outreach requirements, I was just wondering, is the agency contract manager, is that the jurisdiction?
Correct. So I
Okay.
think right now that would be Jeff. for you guys.
Okay, so it sounds like the hauler and Jeff will be getting together to talk about education in terms of 1383. I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
It's similar to what currently goes on with the annual public education and outreach plan. Green Waste is required to provide that annually to the contract manager for review and approval. And then as long as everything's good there and everyone's on the same page about how they want to approach these outreach efforts, then Green Waste goes ahead and that plan is approved.
And the district is a part of those conversations about education as well?
They certainly
Waste
could
Management
be.
District?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that, the district is absolutely involved in that, yes.
Okay, good. And then can you just clarify, I thought that I read at some point that the city is responsible for paying for the mailings of the educational material. Is that true?
I think ultimately through the rates, that is how most of Green Waste operations are funded. But I don't believe there's a direct, Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe there's a direct check that the city's writing to provide those mailers.
That's correct. It's funded through the ratepayers. And to answer your earlier question, all of the outreach and communications that we do, we try to do region-wide. So we will work with Chief Hoyne and the other agency contract managers in conjunction with the district to make sure that there's unified messaging.
Okay, good. Okay, super. That's it for me. Thank you.
All right. So I want to make sure I'm absolutely clear. So for residents, there is no impact on current rates.
That is not correct. There will be a increase in rates in order to cover the costs related to SB 1383 provision.
And so then on top of that, the city has an increase of 5.34%.
That's the 5.34% covers all of the additional 1383 costs. Yes, so that's fully encompassing. That is the only impact that customers will see.
So that 5.34% is paid by customers or it's paid by us?
It's paid by the customers.
Yeah, I thought we had a cost for entry. Is that correct? Does the city pay something?
I don't believe that is the case. No, it's simply passed through as a rate increase. Emily, am I?
No, if anything, the city, we remit as part of the pleasure of having the exclusive franchise, we remit payment back to the city as part of our franchise agreement, but there's no transaction of the city compensating Green Waste for any of the work that we do.
If I may, through the mayor.
Yeah.
Perhaps you're speaking about the portion that we've, and Dave helped me with the technical aspects of this, the portion that we allotted to reduce those costs in the future when we're working on this.
The buffer or surplus that we had accrued, yeah.
Yes, thank you. And can you just explain that briefly for the mayor and council?
Please.
Yeah. So in our prior rate adjustment, we recommended that we build in sort of a buffer as we anticipated these 1383 costs that were coming. That is being used in addition to this 5.34% increase. The cost did come in higher than anticipated, as well as, just other reasons of not wanting to put too much of a big bank and having people pay higher rate increases than necessary last July. As a result, we have that surplus, which was used here and did lower the total rate adjustment that was required. That total amount still did come out to 5.34%, but it is a one-time adjustment, and there will be no further increases in rates related to SB 1383, with the one exception that if Green Waste does come back to demonstrate that efforts were greater than anticipated and they needed to, for example, add a new route. Obviously, your guys' city is small enough. I don't think you'll have to be paying for the full route. That will be split up amongst everyone. But that is the one provision where you could see some future 1383 cost impacts, but those are pretty minimal. And I believe we did put some caps on, what would be allowed in the future based on some proposals from Green Waste and what was negotiated with the district and Green Waste and each individual agency.
Okay, so then that leads me to, so our 5.34% is on par with much larger cities like Monterey and Seaside, whereas Sand Cities is half that increase. Can you explain to me why that is?
Part of it is an accounts issue. So the way that things were divvied up, it wasn't just the population. Think about it more in terms of the number of containers that Green Waste would need to service. So that plays somewhat of the factor into there. The other piece in terms of the rate adjustments is that buffer that people included was different depending on the city and the revenue requirement that Green Waste requires to operate in those jurisdictions. For example, some cities could put in $10,000 and that would go much further than a larger city's $100,000 would. So that buffer really played a role. It was sort of they paid in advance. You guys are doing a little more catch up.
Okay. And so how long is this agreement good for? This current one, the 5.34% increase?
That will continue through the term of the agreement. And with any option to extend, it would continue through.
Will we be revisiting this in July, on July 1?
We will have a multi-index rate adjustment that is contractually scheduled. So just the normal rate adjustment that we had last July as well. You won't have to worry about any additional buffers this time around.
Good.
But it's the annual scheduled index adjustment that will happen. So this January increase is a one-time working at all of this additional 1383 costs that you guys will need to be compliant.
Okay, I'm sorry to ask so many questions, but our waste management costs have just skyrocketed over the last 5 years or so. And so it's, I'm always very sensitive about the increases. So thank you for answering those questions. I want to go out to the public. Ms. Harris.
Madam Mayor, City Council, thank you for the opportunity again. Glad to be a part of the discussion. I am so supportive of this 1383 and composting our organic waste, our food waste, and putting that into making more electricity. I love that idea with Monterey One Water, or even with the Waste Management District. I'm just wondering about the cost. If there's a 5.34 increase, you know, why is that an increase? Because there's no new container. I mean, it's just the same green waste. I don't know how it's being treated any differently. Maybe you can explain why we need to have that increase for indefinitely. I mean, I could see maybe for a year or two for getting the public outreach and education out there. But after that, I just don't understand. Maybe you can help explain, somebody can explain why we need to have, 5.34. I mean, that's really starting to add up over the years, plus another increase that we're going to be looking at in next year, July, I think you said, Rob. So I'm really supportive of recycling and composting. But as far as the cost, I'd like to see some more justification. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are welcome to answer, but public comment is referred to staff. Okay. So Ms. Weiberg, did you have a question?
I just would like to thank you for all your questions, some of which I hadn't even thought of, but thank you for bringing them up, Mayor Kerr. And I ditto what Ms. Harris said. I've never lived anywhere that experienced such rapidly rising waste costs, and I would like to see some of this be substantiated concretely. I understand a lot of it's just because of changes in the companies we were using 4 or 5 years ago. And then when green waste came in, everything went really crazy high. And I don't even know why that happened in the way it did. So, and now they're saying they're going to increase it immediately and again in the summer, and they plan to do it every summer. I would like to see some substantiation for this. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. There's actually a lot of substantiation in the reports. So,
Mayor, if I may,
yeah.
through the mayor, a
Please.
lot of those extra costs are discussed in the amendment attachment. It details the costs and why they went up and the impacts that we faced in the last year regarding the impacts of 1383 and the unexpected pandemic.
Rob, did you want to say something? I saw you unmuted. Okay. Any other public comment? It's a good conversation. All right, let's bring it back to the council. Any last comments, Ms. Lintel?
And thank you.
Mr. Gagliotti?
None, thank you.
Mr. Donaldson?
No.
Ms. Shirley?
No, thank you.
All right, so neither do I. I asked plenty. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we consider a franchise agreement amendment with the Green Waste for solid waste recycling and organic collection services.
I'll second. So Karen, could you please do a roll call vote?
Councilmember Gagliotti,
Aye.
Councilmember Donaldson,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lintel,
Aye.
Mayor Kerr.
Aye, so it passes unanimously. That's it for new business. We're going to move on to staff reports. Excuse me, city manager report. Mr. Girton.
Yeah, just a few things to cover. We're still making progress. Mayor, I think you touched on this a little bit at the start of the meeting, making progress on some administrative functions and bringing some of our foundational materials into a more efficient structure. One of those you mentioned is the meeting minutes and really condensing those into action minutes so that we can free up staff time for other things. But another one that I want to highlight that I think we all just witnessed was last month you all working with me to make the police chief also the acting city manager. And as Jeff mentioned, waste management and sustainability is not normally in the wheelhouse of a police chief. And Jeff's done an excellent job stepping up and taking the lead on this. And so I really appreciate his help with this. You know, we are a small staff and we all wear many different hats. And it's good when members of the staff are out working with the public and working with different committees and for the people that they're working with to understand what their role is and understand that it's broader than what their single title might be. So that's been really helpful. Also administratively, after a little more than a year, the Acorn is soon to be back. So the Acorn will be going out later this week for printing, scheduled for delivery for next week. So everybody be looking for that. I really want to thank Randy Birch for all of the work that he's done on this. It's been a lot of cat herding for him and he's done an awesome job. He's really got, as Jeff likes to say, he's our resident millennial. So he's brought a lot of improvements technologically and to the formatting, and it's been great for everyone on staff and the council members and in the community who have contributed content for the Acorn. I really appreciate it. It was a real team effort, and so I think everybody will be really happy to see the work and read about what's been going on in the city. Excuse me. So Public Works, also Ron Fucci doing yeoman's work, especially now as we're getting some rain and getting prepared for winter and for storm events. Again, he's an army of one. He occasionally gets crew help, which sometimes is more work for him than help. But he's a master at getting great work out of the crews that come and help. They've been doing a lot of brush clearing, cleaning out the storm drains to prepare for the hopefully rainy season. They've been working yesterday and today. They were down in the park clearing out brush, clearing out the creek area through there to make sure that we have efficient flows. They've been cleaning out storm drains, cleaning out the ice plant that grows down into the V gutters and blocks the runoff that then backs out onto the roads. So he's been doing great. But for everybody, anybody out on your walk or anything, if you really want to see an example of the great stuff that Ron does with very limited resources, check out the path on Portola, the stairs between Portola and Work Street. It's still closed right now, but Ron's doing great work out there with our contractors to get that done. They've done a whole new concrete for the length, evening out the stairs, and cleaning up the pathway so that people can actually walk on it and not walking on sand anymore. There's a new retaining wall that'll help maintain the structure of the stairs and preventing more earth from coming down, which we're really happy with. I know the adjacent residents are really happy with because it'll help stabilize the hillside there. And then they've also put in new drainage to keep the water from washing out the stairs. It's still not open yet because they have to repair and replace a lot of the fencing along there before it's open for the public. But by next week, it should be reopened. But anybody walking by, you can already see the great work that's gone into that. And then last but not least, our police department. Jeff has a few things to brag on administratively, just so you all know. We've been doing a lot of training, sending a lot of our police staff to training. The entire city staff is going to benefit from some of that. Jeff can talk more about the emotional intelligence training that Sergeant Guzman attended. And then he's going to be, he's already shared that information with the police department, but he's also going to be sharing that with the administrative staff so that we can benefit from what he learned in that. And then I'll turn it over to the chief. He can talk about some of the traffic things that we've been dealing with, since I know that that's an issue. And then also he gets to brag on his folks and their detective work. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, boss, mayor, council members. A lot has been going on in the police department the last year, as you'll see in the Acorn, just some updates. First, about the emotional intelligence training. With all of the unrest and the distrust between communities and the police that have occurred all across this country, I just want to be thankful for our community and our council, who has supported our police department and understood that we work very hard to earn that trust and to keep that trust. As part of that, you know, we tripled the training budget for our police department when we merged with the airport police department, and we came on board, and that was with the support of the council. And part of that relays into the things that we send our officers to learn about. Sergeant Guzman approached me about a month or two ago about going to emotional intelligence training. And really, emotional intelligence and self-awareness are two of the most important characteristics that police officers can have, because it guides their decision-making in both day-to-day and in life-threatening spur-of-the-moment decision-making processes that they have. And the more practice that we have in these issues, the better police officers and the better community members we're going to be. He came back with a wealth of intelligence. He found a book that we'll be providing to not only our entire police department, but also our entire city staff based on emotional intelligence. And that is any interaction that we're going to have with the public, and how we present ourselves and how we deal better to make better outcomes in those interactions. And I'd like to thank Sergeant Guzman for doing that and pushing that effort. It's something I've attended in the past and been involved in my past agencies where I've worked, but he carries the book around, and you'll see him preaching like a good old fashioned Baptist preacher in the police department with some of the officers from time to time. Additionally, our commander, Chris Berkwin, attended the FBI Law Enforcement Executive Development Association Management Leadership Institute. And it's just part of our ongoing effort for professional development and leadership training in our agency among all levels, from the officer all the way on up to the chief. Additionally, you may have seen in the news about the probably dozen or so ATM burglaries that have occurred in Pacific Grove and now in, I believe, Carmel and Monterey. And we had one at our Wells Fargo branch in Delray Oaks. This was in addition to a total of about 30 to 40 of these burglaries, all the way from Paso Robles to San Mateo. Many reports, many photos of the suspect. However, it was our detective program and our relentless follow-up that we preached in our detective program. Our officers reviewed neighboring businesses' video surveillance, obtained a partial plate on a BMW, ran every single BMW with that partial plate in the state of California, and found a plate that was a possible suspect vehicle, and ran a Carfax report on that car, and found out that it was just had an oil change in Bakersfield. At that point, we contacted the Kern County Sheriff's Office, requested that they send an officer to the Jiffy Lube and review and send us surveillance tape from the Jiffy Lube. And there was our suspect in his personal vehicle with the full license plate and all his identifying information. The next day, we sent our detectives to Bakersfield, and we took custody of him, and we transported him up to the Monterey County Jail and booked him into jail on almost a dozen, well, on our count, but eventually almost a dozen different counts of burglary, and additional charges will be forthcoming throughout the entire Central Coast. Additionally, we're working with a Bay Area community that had a $250,000 robbery that was related to a felony case that we had in our airport district. And we were able to identify suspects through review of video and detective follow-up. And we're able to forward suspect information to that Bay Area $250,000 robbery. And they've been involved in several other felony cases that our little Delray Oaks Police Department was able to follow up on and solve crime on a regional level and on a local level at the same time. We're looking at some exciting technological advancements for our department, including MDTs, mobile data terminals in our cars, that allow us to be on par with all the rest of the agencies on the peninsula. I believe we're the only one that doesn't have that technology. However, we're looking at options for that allow us to work in our cars, stay in our cars, and also be out in the street more and not necessarily in the station doing data work, which takes up a large amount of our time for a small agency. Additionally, I would just like to address the speeding on Carlton and on Portola. I've already directed the commander previous to this meeting in working with Ron in Public Works, who helps us move our spare police cars around. We'll be putting some of those ghost cars in the neighborhoods on Portola, on Carlton, and we're going to switch it up with some enforcement efforts with our officers and as well to build upon the success we've had on 218 with those initiatives and the sign truck, and we'll take that into Carlton and into Portola, and we'll work on that. We haven't had very many complaints in the city or at the police department about speeding until this point, directly to the police department. But once I hear this in a city council meeting, we'll act on it, and we'll work with not only the council members. I've talked to Councilmember Shirley and others about this issue already this week. And we will work to address that as best we can. Keep in mind, we can't be everywhere at once, but we'll be everywhere we can be. With that, the Police Advisory Committee will be working with us on our mobile data terminal project and getting feedback from them and getting some recommendations and letting them know what that's all about, why that makes us more efficient and effective. And I've talked enough, boss. I appreciate the time to brag on our department. We're doing some good things.
Thank you. No, that was great. It's good for the community to hear all the good work that you guys are doing. And Mayor, I just want to finish up by saying, in the 3 months that I've been here, I'm just really, truly impressed with the commitment of the entire city staff to service of the community. It's inspiring to me to come in and work with the staff. But having worked for 20 years with different police forces, I think it's important for you all to know that when I talk to the cops here, all of them talk about wanting to do better and wanting to provide better service to the community. And I've never seen that before in my career. So all of them are very dedicated and want to do better and want to learn more and want to have a better relationship with the community. And that's really impressive to me. So thank you, Chief, for that leadership. And with that, I'm done.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Jeff, can we get a copy of that? Can each of the council members get a copy of that book? The Emotional
Absolutely.
Intelligence?
Yes, we ordered extra and we'll be glad to provide that to you as well.
Great. I think lifelong learning.
Allison, I do have something I want to say under council reports.
You may.
Okay, I just am so happy to report that the Citizens Action Group, after a couple of years of inactivity, we are having a modified Christmas event this year. And it's on December 4th from 2 o'clock to 4:30. Santa Claus will be in the gazebo at Delray Park. And you can either walk up or drive up, and bring your cameras because Santa will allow the children to sit on his lap and be photographed. And we'll be handing out little goodie bags with just a few little things to make it more Christmassy for the children. And the flyers, if you haven't received your flyer yet, you will receive it probably this week. And thanks to all the Pony Express helpers who are delivering the flyers. I really appreciate all your help. And as I say, I'm so excited that we are having an event this year. And thank you.
And I'm guessing that there's a flyer in the kiosks?
Yes, of course. There
Okay, so folks can see them that way in case they have lost it or something.
That's correct.
Okay. So the council reports are in the agenda packet, as is correspondence. There's just a few items of note that I want to mention. One is we have a planning commission opening. Applications can be found on the city website, and the deadline to submit those is December 6th. The Board of Supervisors will be considering supervisory redistricting maps this, is it this Saturday? Yep, this Saturday, November 20th from 10 to 12. Delray Oaks was originally being looked at to be shifted from District 4 to District 5, but the most current maps keep us in District 4. You can also attend, I believe, the final meeting of the commission this Thursday at 5:30. Of note in the correspondence is the inclusion of a letter of support for the airport roundtable from Supervisor Adams, District 5 Supervisor Adams. And I just wanted to note that Vice Mayor Lintel's monthly report accidentally got lost in this month's shuffle. And so that will be added to next month's agenda, but she was able to share some of the big things coming up. And lastly, I want to share my appreciation for those of you who have hung with us for the entirety of this meeting. We do a lot of work that may not appear to be exciting, but it does affect us all. So thank you for hanging in there. Thank you for being a part of the conversations. We get a lot of flack for not listening, and it's important for you to be here when we do discuss them. So on that note, our next meeting date is Tuesday, December 14. It's a week early, obviously, because of the holiday at 6 p.m. On that, we are adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving. Please be safe. And we will see you in a few weeks.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.